What if the universe has been trying to talk to you your whole life and you've been walking too fast to hear it? What if the delay that frustrated you in the morning, the stranger who slowed you down, the moment you almost missed? What if none of it was at random? Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important skills on a spiritual path. Not meditation, not rituals, not ancient texts, just paying attention. Welcome to Mystical Journeys with Jase. Hello, everybody. We're going to talk about how to pay attention when you're on the spiritual path. I think one of the first things that everyone realizes is once they've gone along in life, they've already had a lot of little things happen to them. There are times when a person shows up and they seem familiar. A situation happens and tends to go their way. Wow, I had this lucky moment when everything just worked out for me. I think that a lot of people don't realize that what ends up happening is the universe is actually talking to us all the time. And there's little guideposts that come along. And when these guideposts come along, you have to focus on paying attention to them. So today, we're going to get into how to pay attention to some of those guideposts and what to do to increase your awareness and attention so that you'll start to be more spiritually aware of things that are going on around you. Okay, let's get started. There was a time a long time ago, I was meeting my kids, and I remember my mind was in such a hurry. I had so many things on my mind. I had a whole bunch of work related things to worry about. I was wondering what I was actually going to do with the kids and where I was going to go and what I was actually up to for that particular day. I ended up parking my car. And once I parked my car, I walked over to the store and I was in a bit of a hurry. I ended up dropping my keys because I was in such a hurry. I was a little bit upset and hustled through the store. I finished my shopping. I calmed my thinking a little bit. Well, I went outside and I thought, you know what? I'm going to try something just a little bit different. I'm going to try to do things very opposite to the way I've just done them in the last 10 minutes. So, what I did while I was outside, instead of walking pretty quickly like I normally did, I walked along and I started walking at about half speed. Okay, yes, I really was walking half speed, a very slow, casual, and relaxed like that. After about a minute of doing this, I noticed something. I definitely started to notice how I could feel the ground beneath my feet and I could feel the coolness of the air. And as I was walking along over to the grocery store to go pick up some food, I also noticed something. It was snowing at this point, and I was just going along and just at my own little pace. But you know what? I was aware in that moment. I could feel the coolness, I could feel the wind. And I thought, you know what? I've never really looked straight up. And I looked straight up into the air and I stopped. One of the things I noticed was this incredible dance of the snowflakes as they were falling straight down towards me. And it was just a thing of beauty. And I thought, wow, look at all this randomness that's going on here. Look how incredibly beautiful this is. And every so often I'd feel one hit my cheek or my chin, and there'd be a coldness that was there. And I realized that in that moment, that the majority of people in the world, they're really just in such a hurry that they miss a lot of things in life. Most people are traveling through life, not traveling in life. So here's something I'd like you to try to do, and it's a great exercise. The next time you go out and you're walking, you're going somewhere, I want you to take your time and stop. The next thing I want you to do is literally walk only half the speed that you're used to walking. Yes, it's going to be difficult because most people, the way that they walk, it's kind of a controlled falling. you lean forward and you just kind of throw out a leg just in time to keep yourself from falling onto the pavement. Which is why a lot of teachers will say that if you're not focusing on your awareness, it's easy to just trip on something small. Well, if you don't focus on your awareness, it's very easy to miss a lot of things that are going on around you. Okay. So, what I'd like you to try is maybe while you're listening to this podcast or when you're going along or doing a couple of other things, I want you just to try walking at half speed. When you walk at that half speed, it'll take you about a minute, and then you're going to start to see things you never saw before. When I came upon this technique and I started practicing it over a period of weeks, I started to notice that just my day to day awareness was strengthening. I started to notice when people were doing things, it ended up keeping me from stepping out into traffic at one point. You know, at the time, I really wasn't distracted by a cell phone or worried about life or things like that. I was just present in this moment. You begin to look at life differently when you become aware of the life that's going on around you. A few days later, I talked to a friend of mine and I said, "Hey, look, why don't you give this a try?" Because one of the things I always try to do with people, whether they're students or friends or anything like that, I always try to make sure that whatever I'm sharing, especially when I'm sharing some insights, for somebody, it's something that I've already tested. I make sure that it works. And like I've said in other episodes, one of my most important sayings is the proof is in the results. So focus on your spiritual practice. Focus on different things that you're trying to do and see if you get good results from it. Well, anyhow, let me get back to my friend. So my good friend, we're just going to call him John. He goes taking this walk at about half speed, and he notices he's going along and he ended up walking by a person who was actually outside just trimming their hedges. He never got a chance to really talk to that person before, and he saw him, and that person saw him. And they had a really nice time talking with each other, a nice casual little chat. John realized that this person had lived on the street for maybe 6 to 7 years. And honestly, John had never even taken the time to talk to him or find out anything about him. Normally, he just jogged by. But you know what? Today, he ended up finding out that the guy was actually in a mode of business he was already in. And it was really fascinating to find out because this guy had already retired and gave my friend John quite a few good pointers. Now, think about that for a second. Had my friend John not slowed down, taking the time to be self aware, he would have never made the connection and he would have never been open to the universe showing him the benefit from that connection. This also ended up bringing me back to doing some thinking about when I was younger. I remember I was with a young men's group and they ended up taking us out into the woods and we all went out and took a nice walk. Now, we weren't too far from each other, but one of the most important things that we were taught to do was trying to learn to be very patient and very still. Well, one of the things that happened after a good 15 to 20 minutes of hearing my own thinking and maybe my coat being a little bit itchy or whatever, all of a sudden, because I was over on the left side of everybody, I started to notice that the woods had a bit of a flow to it. Like everything was very peaceful and just kind of living on its own. And as I was going along, I started to notice over on the one side, there was a little fox that was over in this one corner, right beside this one tree. And when I noticed and I looked over at it, I just kind of looked back at my friend and I said, "Hey, hey, look over there." And when he started to look over there, now, of course, being younger, everybody's a bit of a giddy person. And what ended up happening was the people started looking around and a couple people started moving around. And one person was like, "Hey, what is that? What is that?" Well, okay. All of a sudden, that spooked the fox right away. All right. Let's take a look at some examples here. By being calm and very still in that moment and just being an observer, I was able to see some things that no one else had seen yet. And when I spoke to my friend, with him being quiet and not jumping up, with his high energy and things like that, he was actually able to see it too. Then right after that, the rest of the world starts to see, yep, everybody else just saw something. They got so excited and they couldn't contain their excitement. And what ended up, doing was it caused that moment, that beautiful experience to disappear very quickly. Now, think about that as far as spirituality. When you're calm and collected and your mind's not really on day to day things, that's when some of the most amazing things happen to you. Okay. In this next section, I want to talk about when you get delayed. I was at a grocery store not too long ago, and there was a lady that was basically to the side of me, and she walked up about the same time I did into the grocery line. I said to her, "Here, go right ahead." And she says, "Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much." And I said, "Hey, it's not a worry." I'm usually joking around in the checkout line. And when I went ahead, I said to her, I said, "You never know. You might just have saved my life." Well, of course, she looks at me kind of funny, like, "Whoa, really?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "You know what? Think about it for a second. If you delayed me by about 20 seconds, I might actually miss an appointment with somebody who runs through a red light. Or this could actually put me a little bit closer to being delayed so that I run into somebody that I needed to run into and then have a wonderful conversation with that person." I can honestly tell you there's so many times I've had things like that happen for me. For me, it's just commonplace at this point. All right, let me give you a really good one. A long time ago, I was in Piscataway, New Jersey, and I was on a service call. So I get out of my hotel room. There's a person putting towels in the room and things like that. It was definitely very hard to get around her little cart. And so I had to stop. I pushed the cart out of the way because it was definitely in the middle of the hallway. I had my tool bag, which was kind of wide, and my other bag was also pretty wide. So it definitely slowed me down quite a bit. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'm just taking my time to get out of here anyhow. So I moved my bag around, got past this person. Well, I get down to the front desk and somebody's already there arguing about their bill. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I've got plenty of time to get on my service call. I'm doing pretty good. I'm the next person in line, and the phone rings, and the person at the front desk goes and answers the call and says, "Hey, can you give me a minute?" I'm like, "Sure, no problem. It's just a delay." All right. Right at this moment, I'm kind of thinking, interesting. I've had a couple of delays right in this series. Hmm. I'm very curious about this one. So I ended up signing out for my bill, and I go to pick up my tool bag, and of course, it opens up for a second. And I'm like, darn it. So I close my bag right up and I'm like, wow, so many little delays here. I get into my car and I start to go over the bridge and I realize that somebody's on my left side and I can't get into the left lane very easily. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I just went over this bridge and I'm in the wrong lane. And instead of going westbound, which is the direction that I was really hoping to go, I ended up having to go eastbound. At this particular moment, for just a fleeting second, I started thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be late for my service call. And then I said, you know what? I remembered what my mentor told me. Just make it okay. And I said, okay. I said, universe, why are all the delays today? What's going on? Well, a couple seconds later, I go down the ramp and all of a sudden there's a car pulled off on the right side. And there's a woman, she's standing outside of her car. Well, I was brought up to be very chivalrous, so I ended up pulling my car over, and I jumped out of my car to see if I could be of assistance. Now, I can tell that this woman's been crying. She's really upset. I jump out and I say, "Hey, hey, miss, what's going on?" I said, "What's your name?" I said, "I'm Jase." And she says her name was Natalie. Oh, by the way, if she ever hears this podcast, I'd love to talk to her again. Anyhow, so I said to her, "What's going on?" And she says to me, she says, "I'm really late for my interview, and my interview is at this university." It's not too far from here, but I can't find it. She told me the name of the university, and I hate to say it, but I kind of laughed a little bit. And I just said to her, I said, you know what? It's okay. I know where we're going. We just have to get off on the Boundbrook exit. So do me a favor. I want you to follow me. We're going to go eastbound. We're going to go down one exit and we're going to turn around. And I need you to follow me back. Okay. After we do that, we're going to go about two more exits westbound. And then we're going to get off and I'm going to take you down to that university. And she's like, okay, great. And she wiped away some of her tears and said, thank you so much. So the next thing that happens is we get ourselves turned around and both of us are finally going the correct direction. I take her to the Boundbrook exit. We get off the exit. We make a left turn. We go about another mile or so. And I'm dropping her off and I slow down for just a second and she pulls over and I can see she had this big smile on her face and she's really happy and excited. She ends up waving at me and I ended up smiling. And I got to tell you, I was pretty happy that day. Now, think about that for a second. Not only was there a delay that happened to me, it was also really important because my delay ended up placing me at the exact time and exact place. And I ended up helping somebody in a way that they never expected. Now, one thing I might want to point out here is it's entirely possible that with her thinking and whatever she was doing, something caused an energetic effect, which put me in that area at the exact same moment. Or it could be something as simple as I just happened to be the nice guy that she flagged down. In any event, we'll just focus on the delay for the moment. I got a delay. I ended up helping somebody out. How's that for some good energy there? What delays are trying to tell you? All right. What I want you to think about is when you have delays that happen in your life, I'd like you to really reconsider those delays. Make the delay okay. Pay attention. You might end up finding out the real reason why you got delayed. I mean, think about all the times when tragedy happened to a large group of people and somebody ends up getting delayed and they don't make it to the airport in time, or they ended up not going into work on time, or something like that. And they ended up being okay. Something caused them a nice delay. So rather than getting a bit angry about it and focusing on going faster and ignoring the delay, they slowed down a little bit. They paid attention and they got to experience something amazing afterwards. Okay, here's what I'd like you to do today. I'd like you to take a moment, maybe even two. I'd like you to really try to walk at half speed. Just take your time. Walk at half speed. And about 30 seconds into it, start to notice your surroundings. What I'd like you to do is when you notice some of the things you notice, afterwards, I want you to write them down and I want you to think about them. I want you to realize that there are those things that you would have never noticed. And if you've been going about your normal pace in life, rather than being in a place where you're adding to your awareness. Okay, that's good enough for this week. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. All right. If today's episode gave you something to think about, I'd like you to hit that follow so you don't miss that next episode that's coming up. And if the idea of paying attention and slowing down is something you needed to hear today, chances are somebody else in your life needs to hear it as well. Please send them this episode, and you might be the guidepost that shows up for somebody else. Feel free to send in any questions. I'll be happy to address them on future podcasts. And I'm looking forward to sharing with you everything I can. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for being here.